I want to begin the chair's report by mentioning the scrolling tribute that you may have seen on the screens before we started the program. We'll be running them again during lunch at least. This is a list of names of CRL member librarians and staff who have made contributions throughout the year to the work of the center. So take a look at that when you next have a chance. Dear Sarah, begins an email message from Professor Lars Schultz at UNC Chapel Hill. He says, if you check CRL's database of frequent borrowers, you will see that I am certainly gold and probably platinum, maybe platinum plus. That's because I studied the history of U.S. relations with Latin America, which requires the heavy use of presidential documents and Latin American materials, especially government documents and periodicals. Our home collection is excellent, go UNC, of course, but CRL's depth is truly astounding. After more than 3 decades of borrowing, I am still waiting for the day when CRL tells me that it does not have what I need. So let me warn you and your colleagues who are gathered in Chicago, a lot of your forebears created and nurtured an organization that a lot of us depend upon for our research. Now it's your generation's turn to run CRL. And I'm sure you will find good reasons to tinker a bit here and there, but as you contemplate change, first do no harm. Unquote. I think that what Professor Schultz is saying is that it's necessary to make changes as time goes on, but it's also important to tend to the fundamentals. CRL President Bernie Riley chose the theme fundamentals for the 2010-11 CRL annual report. In his introduction to the report, Bernie says, quote, this year CRL reaffirmed its long-standing commitment to preserving the fundamental raw materials of advanced research, primary source collections. Going on, the introduction says, throughout its history, CRL has ensured the survival of many kinds of primary sources, newspapers, archives, government publications, historical journals, and other materials that form the substrate of documentation. But CRL's activities must go broader to ensure that all of its resources are deployed to support research and scholarship. Digitizing Latin American, African, and South Asian newspapers, 540,000 pages in 2010-11 alone. Providing opportunities for our North American library and scholarly communities to discuss pressing issues such as preservation of data and documentation about water. Promoting discussion about new approaches to collection development via webinars or in-person conferences, or aiding libraries in negotiating terms for some of the large humanities research databases. All of these are examples of important CRL activities that represent not a change in CRL's mission, but a change in the way CRL pursues its mission. During this current year, CRL demonstrated once again that it is possible to tend to the fundamentals in creative and resource-conscious ways. CRL and the Linda Hall Library of Science, Engineering, and Technology have entered into a strategic partnership to preserve and develop historical research collections in the fields of science, technology, and engineering. The partnership will build upon rich holdings of print serials in those fields assembled by the two institutions during the past 6 decades. See if I can get this right. I didn't note it down. Linda Hall started in 1946, and CRL started in 1949, so they're almost twins. Together, these two collections constitute a premier library of global science. CRL and Linda Hall will now combine human, technical, and financial resources to further develop these collections, actively promote their visibility and use, and preserve them for future generations of scholars and researchers. And you know that Linda Hall is located in Kansas City. Returning to Professor Schultz, the new agreement with Linda Hall is the kind of change that he welcomes wholeheartedly. A solid plan to extend and sustain access to and preservation of valuable research materials. I know because at UNC he is a long-serving library advisory board member and a constant user of our collections. To tell the truth, I sort of embarrassedly changed the conclusion of his message. Instead of "first do no harm," he actually said, "For heaven's sake, don't screw it up."